Rain on a Manhattan boardroom window, the 42nd floor, a long mahogany table. At one end, a family draped in black silk and diamonds. At the other end, alone, a woman in nurse's scrubs. A silver coin slides down the polished wood. Tarnished. Heavy. It travels 40 feet of greed and laughter. It stops in front of her. $1. That is all he left her. That is everything. Somewhere far north in the wet pines of the Berkshires, a single lamp burns in a window of a house no one is supposed to know exists. An old woman waits by an open door. A wreath of dried lavender turns in the wind. A photograph in the daughter's hand. A baby that is not her. A mother she thought she knew. A stepmother's smile too wide. Too soon. And in the hospital bed, she just left an old woman with cloudy blue eyes closes them. For the last time. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Hospital hum the way they always did at 3 in the morning. A low whine, steady, almost a prayer. Cordelia Bellwether pressed 2 fingers against the papery wrist of the old woman in bed 14. The pulse was there, faint, stubborn, the way old hearts can be. "There you are, Edith," she whispered. "There you are." Edith Caldwell, 75 years old, opened one cloudy blue eye. The other stayed closed. Stroke damage from 6 months ago. A husband buried 12 years past. No children. No nieces. No nephews. Just a single grandnephew in Phoenix who never picked up the phone. "You came back," Edith breathed. "I always come back." "Sing, honey." Cordelia smiled. The kind of smile a woman only gives when she knows nobody important is watching. She adjusted the pale blue blanket around Edith's shoulders, smoothed it. Then she sat down on the metal stool beside the bed, and she sang. It was an old Irish lullaby, something her mother used to hum while braiding her hair. Soft, slow, the kind of song that lives inside a woman's chest long after the woman who taught it has gone. Edith closed her good eye, and then Cordelia's phone buzzed against her thigh. She ignored it. It buzzed again. She ignored it. The third time she pulled it out of her scrub pocket with the kind of slow patience that comes from working 14-hour shifts in an emergency room in New York City. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number, New York. She let it go to voicemail. Then a text came through. "This is Walter Ashford. Your father is dead." Cordelia did not move. She did not gasp. She did not put her hand to her mouth the way they do in the movies. She did not stand up. She did not crumble. She kept singing. Because if she stopped singing, Edith Caldwell would wake up alone in the middle of the night in a hospital. And Cordelia Bellwether had decided a long time ago that no woman in her care would ever wake up alone. So she sang until the lullaby ended, until the old woman's breathing slowed into the rhythm of real sleep, until the only sound in bed 14 was the slow tick of the IV drip and the hum of those fluorescent lights overhead. Only then did she stand. Only then did she walk out into the empty corridor. And only then, with her back pressed against the cold tile of the supply room wall, did Cordelia Bellwether allow herself to slide slowly down to the floor. She did not cry. She just sat there, 30 years old, still in her scrubs, holding a phone that said her father had died and feeling nothing at all. Or rather, feeling something. But she did not have a name for it yet. She closed her eyes, and the memory came. It was 2008. November. The same kind of cold rain. Cordelia Bellwether was 12 years old. 12 and a half if you asked her, because at that age every half year matters. She was sitting on the edge of her mother's hospital bed. The room smelled like antiseptic and the lavender lotion her mother loved. Elizabeth Bellwether was 38. She was beautiful, even then, even with no hair, even with a port in her chest and tubes running into her arms. She had cheekbones like a saint and a laugh like a wind chime. An ovarian cancer had been eating her alive for 19 months. "Mama," Cordelia whispered. "I'm here, baby. Don't go." Elizabeth turned her head against the pillow. Slowly. The way you turn when your bones have forgotten how to hold you up. She lifted one trembling hand and placed it on her daughter's cheek. "Listen to me, Cordelia. Listen carefully. I'm listening. Sweet girl. Sweet, brave girl. The world is going to try to harden you. It will hand you reasons, good reasons, money, pride, people who hurt you. And every reason will sound like a good reason at the time. Mama, please. You promise me something. Anything. Don't let it. Don't let the world make your heart hard. Money, anger, any of it. Promise me your heart stays soft. I promise. Say it again. I promise." Elizabeth Bellwether smiled. She closed her eyes. And then her hand fell away from her daughter's face, and 12-year-old Cordelia sat there alone in a hospital room that smelled of lavender, holding her mother's wedding ring in her fist, because Elizabeth had taken it off in the last hour, and pressed it into her daughter's palm, and folded the small fingers shut around it. A small inheritance, a whispered one. A year later, Vivian Whitlock walked through the front door of the Bellwether penthouse with a daughter named Beatrice on her hip and a boy of about 8 gripping her other hand. The boy's name was Preston. He was hers, too. From the same first marriage, 2 children from a husband she did not speak of, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. And little Cordelia, standing on the marble staircase in her school uniform, watched her father offer this woman his arm, watched him laugh at something she said, watched him for the first time in a year look like a man who was alive. Cordelia ran upstairs, locked her door, and she made a second promise that day. To herself. A small, fierce one. I will never need anything from him again. The bus took her home that morning. The Q32 from 61st Street. The kind of bus that smells like wet wool and bodega coffee and somebody's perfume from 3 rows back. Cordelia Bellwether pressed her forehead against the cold window. Manhattan slid past her. Gray, glittering, indifferent. Her phone rang again. She did not answer. It rang a 5th time. a sixth. By the seventh, she finally picked up. "This is Cordelia." "Ms. Bellwether, Walter Ashford. I'm so sorry to reach you this way. Why are you calling me?" "Your father passed last night. At his home. We need you at the reading of the will. This afternoon, 2 o'clock. The offices of Ashford, Pemberton, and Hollis, Park Avenue." "No." There was a long silence. "Ms. Bellwether, with respect, your father was very specific. He wanted you there. My father has not wanted me for 10 years. Be that as it may, he was very specific." She closed her eyes. The bus jolted over a pothole. Her forehead bumped the glass. 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. I'll be there." She hung up, and she sat there on the Q32 in her scrubs, with her mother's wedding ring still around her neck on a thin silver chain. And she thought, of course he could not even die without staging a scene. She did not change clothes. That was the thing she would remember later, the small defiance of it. She showered. She washed her hair. She put on a clean pair of navy blue scrubs and her sensible nursing shoes, and she pulled her dark hair back into a low knot at the nape of her neck. She put on her mother's ring, outside over the chain, where she could touch it. Then she walked to the subway. Then she rode it to 59th Street. Then she walked to Park Avenue. The offices of Ashford, Pemberton, and Hollis sat on the 42nd floor of a glass tower that looked like a knife stabbed into the New York sky. The lobby was all marble and money. The receptionist looked at Cordelia's scrubs the way a cat looks at a wet shoe. "Can I help you?" "Cordelia Bellwether." The cat's face changed. Oh, yes, they are. Expecting you. 42nd floor. Conference room A. The elevator was silent. The numbers climbed. Cordelia watched her reflection in the polished brass doors. A tired woman in scrubs. A small silver ring at her collarbone. A jaw set tight enough to crack walnuts. Her mother's voice somewhere in the back of her skull. "Don't let your heart go hard." She breathed in. She breathed out. The doors opened. The conference room was a cathedral of greed. 40 feet of polished walnut. Floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the lashing November rain. Original oil paintings on the walls. A chandelier the size of a small car. And around the long table in their bespoke suits and black silk dresses sat the family. Vivian Bellwether, 45 years old, wearing Chanel and a black mourning veil that did absolutely nothing to hide the satisfaction on her face. Vivian had been Cordelia's stepmother for 17 years. The woman had taken the place at the head of the family table the way a tide takes a sandcastle. Patient, steady, inevitable. To Vivian's right sat Preston, 25, golden beautiful, and approximately as useful to society as a wet match. Cordelia's stepbrother, Vivian's son from her first marriage. Adopted by Theodore Bellwether when he was 9. He was scrolling his phone. He did not look up. To Vivian's left sat Beatrice, 27. Vivian's daughter from her first marriage, adopted by Teddy when she was 11. Beatrice was wearing a black dress that probably cost more than 3 months of Cordelia's rent. She was crying. The strange thing was that her tears looked real. And at the head of the table, behind a stack of cream-colored documents and a small silver pen, sat Walter Ashford, 65 years old, white hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of stillness in him that made you suspect he had never once in his life raised his voice. He looked up. His eyes met Cordelia's, and something flickered there. It was the smallest thing, a muscle in his jaw, a softening at the corner of one eye. Anybody else in the room would have missed it. Cordelia, who had spent 10 years reading the faces of dying men, did not. She filed it away. "Ms. Bellwether," Walter said, "please, sit." She sat, at the far end of the table, as far from the family as the geometry would allow. Vivian lifted her veil 1 inch. "Cordelia, darling, you came in your work clothes." "Yes." "How?" "Bohemian." There's a Saks 2 blocks over, if you needed something." "I didn't." Preston snorted into his phone. Beatrice did not look up. Walter cleared his throat. "We are here for the final reading of the last will and testament of Theodore Winston Bellwether. He left explicit instructions. There will be no interruptions, no negotiations, and no recordings. We will proceed in the order written." Vivian smiled. It was a small smile, private. The smile of a woman who has already counted the money. Walter opened the folder. The first hour was a slaughter. To Vivian, the penthouse on Park Avenue. To Vivian, the villa in Antibes. To Vivian, the controlling 60% stake in Bellwether Global Logistics, valued conservatively at $1.8 billion. Vivian dipped her head, demure, as if surprised. To Preston, the private aviation fleet, the $50 million trust, the commercial real estate in London and Singapore. Preston finally put his phone down. He grinned at his mother. To Beatrice, the art collection, 3 Monets, 2 Rothkos, a Klimt, the horse property in Connecticut, a trust of her own. Beatrice did not grin. Beatrice cried harder. Cordelia, at the far end of the table, watched all of this the way a woman watches a documentary about a place she will never visit. Detached, distant, mildly curious. She was not jealous. She had not been jealous in 17 years. She was tired. That was all. And she was thinking about Edith Caldwell. Whether the night nurse would remember to give her the second dose of her heart medication at 6. Whether anybody would sit beside her tomorrow morning when the sun came up. And finally, Walter said. The room shifted. It was the smallest thing, a change in pressure. The air thickened. Preston, who had picked up his phone again, set it down. Beatrice stopped crying. Vivian leaned forward. The smile she had been hiding behind her veil bloomed open, wide, hungry, eager. To my eldest daughter, Walter read. Cordelia Elise Bellwether. Cordelia's hands folded in her lap went very still, for her unwavering independence, for her refusal to bow to expectation, for her insistence on making her own way in the world. I leave the sum of exactly $1. May it serve as a reminder of the value of hard work. Silence. A long silence. Then Preston laughed. It was loud, sharp, a bark. Beatrice gasped and covered her mouth. But Cordelia saw the corners of her eyes crinkle. Couldn't help it. Could not. And Vivian Bellwether, 45 years old, daughter of a fired factory worker, wife of a dead tycoon. Vivian did not laugh. Vivian smiled, slow, wide, triumphant, like a woman who had finally, after 17 years, won a game she had been playing since before her opponent knew she was on the board. Walter Ashford reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket. He did not produce a check. He did not produce a sheet of paper. He produced a single coin. It was old, heavy, tarnished silver. A 1922 peace dollar. Lady Liberty on one side, the eagle on the other. He set it on the polished walnut, and then, with the soft, careful motion of a man placing a chess piece, he slid it down the 40-foot length of the conference table. The sound of metal scraping wood. It traveled past Vivian, past Preston, past Beatrice, spinning slightly as it went, the chandelier light catching the tarnished edges, spinning, spinning, until it came to a slow, dead stop directly in front of Cordelia. She looked down at it. A single dollar. 40 years of her father's silence. 18 years since her mother's funeral. 12 years since she had been called stubborn and stupid for refusing Wharton. 5 years since she had spoken a word to her father. All of it distilled into one tarnished coin. She felt something inside her chest move. She could not name it. Anger, maybe, or grief, or that strange, exhausted laugh that lives at the bottom of a woman who has been pushed past her breaking point and is now standing politely on the other side. Vivian adjusted her Cartier watch. "Well," she purred, "I suppose you could take the subway home. Although, doesn't a single ride cost $2.90 now? Such a pity." Preston laughed harder. Beatrice stared at the floor. And Cordelia Bellwether, 30 years old, emergency room nurse, daughter of Elizabeth, daughter of a promise. She reached out. She picked up the coin. It was cold, heavier than it looked. The metal bit into the skin of her palm, and she closed her fingers slowly around it. She did not cry. She did not scream. She did not throw it back at her stepmother's perfectly painted face, which was, she would realize later, exactly what they all wanted her to do. She stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. A loud, ugly sound. Vivian flinched at the noise. Cordelia did not. She tucked the coin into the front pocket of her scrubs. She looked just for one moment at Walter Ashford. His face was stone. His eyes were not. "Have a nice afternoon," Cordelia said to the room, and she walked out. The hallway was longer than she remembered. The carpet was plush, cream, expensive. Her sensible shoes made no sound on it at all. Down the corridor, past the framed photographs of dead partners, past the receptionist who tried not to look at her, to the elevator bank. She hit the down button. She hit it again. She hit it a third time. And on the fourth time her hand was shaking. And on the fifth time her vision went strange and watery at the edges. And on the sixth time She pressed her forehead against the cold marble wall and let out a sound. It was not a sob. It was something smaller. A breath that had been held for too long. "Mama," she whispered. "To no one. To everyone. To the marble. Mama, I tried." The elevator chimed. The doors opened, and from behind her, down the long carpeted hallway, came a voice. "Miss Bellwether, Cordelia, please, wait." She did not turn around. "Leave me alone, Mr. Ashford." "I can't. You did your job. That was not the job." She turned around. Walter Ashford was walking toward her. Fast. The careful, glacial dignity of the boardroom was gone. His tie was loosened. His face was pale. And he was glancing over his shoulder the way a man glances when he is being followed. He reached the elevator. He stepped inside. He pressed a button. Not the lobby. The basement parking garage. The doors slid closed. "What are you doing?" "Saving your life, I hope." "Excuse me. Ms. Bellwether. Cordelia. Please listen carefully, because I have approximately 11 minutes before Vivian realizes I am not in the building." The elevator began to descend. Walter reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. He pulled out a thick black envelope. It was sealed with red wax. An old, heavy wax seal pressed with the letter B. He held it out to her. She did not take it. "What is this?" "A letter. From your father." "My father is dead. He wrote it 3 months ago. He gave it to me. He said, quote, 'If she throws the coin at my proxy in anger, she is not ready. If she keeps it, even in her grief, then give her this. Then take her home.'" Cordelia stared at him. "Home where?" "Open the letter." She took it. Her hands were not steady. She broke the wax seal with her thumbnail. The red wax flaked. Inside was a single piece of heavy cream stationery, and on it, in handwriting she had not seen in 5 years, were words that stopped her breath. "My Cordelia, if you are reading this, I am dead, and I have just insulted you, publicly, cruelly, in front of the people who killed me. Forgive me. I had to make them believe. They had won. I had to make them believe you were nothing to me, because if they had known what you were to me, they would have come for you next. Go with Walter. Trust him. The coin is the key. And Cordelia, your mother, was not who you think she was. She was so much more. Stillwater is waiting for you. Forgive me. Love, Daddy." The elevator was very quiet. Cordelia read the letter twice, then a third time. Then she lifted her eyes to Walter Ashford's face. He was murdered. Yes. By Vivian. By Vivian and by Preston. Yes. How? Digitalis. It is a heart medication. In small doses, it stabilizes congestive heart failure. In incrementally larger doses administered over 18 months, It produces symptoms identical to vascular dementia, followed by cardiac arrest. Your father had been taking medication for an atrial flutter for years. They simply adjusted his prescription. The elevator stopped. The basement. The doors did not open. Walter had not pressed the button to release them. Why didn't you go to the police? He forbade me, until the day he died. Why? Because Bellwether Global Logistics employs 12,400 people. Miss Bellwether, in 31 countries. A public scandal of this magnitude. An attempted assassination by the controlling shareholder. The stock would have collapsed within a single trading day. Pensions, severance, livelihoods. All of it. Gone. He could not. He would not be the man who destroyed those families to save himself. So he died instead. So he died. Yes. On his own terms. He died. And he left you. Everything you need to finish what he started. Cordelia looked down at the silver coin in her hand. The tarnish. The dull gleam. It's just a coin. It is not. It is a $1, Mr. Ashford. Press the eye. What? The eagle. On the reverse. Press its eye. She turned the coin over. The eagle stared at her. Old. Patient. With a tiny black indentation where its eye should have been. She pressed it with the edge of her thumbnail. Click. Soft. Mechanical. Like a watch being wound. The top half of the coin slid sideways. The 1922 peace dollar was not a solid piece of silver. It was a vessel. Hollow. Masterfully machined. And inside the shallow basin of the coin, tucked into a tiny green velvet lining, were two things. A small folded photograph and a brass key. Old. The kind of key that opens a door that has not been opened in a long time. Cordelia did not breathe. She unfolded the photograph with trembling fingers. It was old. Sepia at the corners. A woman stood in front of a stone cottage. She was wearing a white summer dress, and her dark hair was loose around her shoulders, and she was laughing. She was laughing in a way Cordelia had not seen in 18 years. It was her mother. And in her arms, in Elizabeth Bellwether's arms, was a baby. A baby that was not Cordelia. A tiny face. A small fist. A pink bonnet. A bundle of life pressed against the chest of a young woman who was not yet a mother to the daughter she would have one day, and who was in that photograph, completely blindingly happy. Cordelia stared. She stared until her vision blurred. "Who?" she whispered. "Who is this baby?" Walter Ashford did not answer for a long moment. When he did, his voice was very soft. "That is a question, Ms. Bellwether. That is a question for Stillwater. Stillwater. It is a small estate in western Massachusetts, the Berkshires. Your father purchased it the year after your mother passed. He kept it for 17 years, untouched, maintained, as she left it. He never told me. He could not. He had 18 years to tell me. He had reasons. They are Better explained, by the woman who is waiting for you there. Cordelia closed her hand around the coin, around the key, around the photograph of a mother she thought she had known. What woman? Her name is Bridget Donnelly. She was your mother's dearest friend since they were 8 years old. She has been the keeper of Stillwater for 17 years. My mother had a best friend. Your mother had an entire life, Ms. Bellwether, before she married your father, a life he did not share with anyone, including you. The elevator doors slid open. The parking garage was cold, dim, the smell of concrete and oil. A black Lexus idled 50 feet away, headlights on, engine running. Walter gestured. It is a 4-hour drive. We should leave now. Before Vivian realizes. Realizes what? That her stepdaughter is not as poor as she thinks she is. Cordelia did not move. She stood in the open elevator, in her scrubs, her dark hair coming loose from its knot, a photograph in one hand, a coin in the other, a key warm against her palm. She thought of Edith Caldwell. She thought of her promise to her mother. She thought of the bus ride back to Queens that she could not now possibly make. She thought of the woman in the photograph, the mother she had loved, the mother she suddenly terribly didn't know. She stepped out of the elevator. She walked across the parking garage. She got into the back of the black Lexus. Walter Ashford got behind the wheel. The doors locked with a soft electric click. The garage gate rolled up. And as the car pulled out onto Park Avenue, into the gray, lashing rain of a November afternoon, Cordelia Bellwether looked through the tinted window at the city of her birth, and she understood that the woman who would come back to it would not be the same woman who was leaving. The Lexus turned north. Manhattan thinned. The Bronx came. The Bronx went. The Hutchinson Parkway opened up gray and wet, and Walter Ashford drove in silence for the first 30 miles. And Cordelia stared at the photograph until she could no longer see it through the watery shake of her own tears. When she finally spoke, her voice was hoarse. How long has my father known that I was being lied to? About your mother? About all of it? Walter glanced at her in the rear view. Your father loved your mother, Ms. Bellwether, in a way I have never seen one human being love another. When she died, he fell apart. The man you grew up with after that day, the cold one, the distant one, that was not your father. That was a man walking around wearing your father's clothes. He told me once, 6 months ago, he said, Walter, I lost my whole life on a Tuesday in November, and I never got it back. Cordelia turned her face to the window. The rain ran sideways across the glass. Why did he stay quiet? Because of Vivian. What about her? He met her 3 months after your mother died. She was a young woman working at one of the offices. He did not, at first, realize who she was or what she was capable of. And later, When he did realize, it was too late. She had Beatrice. She had Preston. He had married her. And she had begun the slow work of getting between him and the daughter he loved more than he could say. Cordelia closed her eyes. Why didn't he just leave her? He tried. Once. 8 years ago. She told him that if he divorced her, she would publish things about your mother that would have destroyed your memory of her permanently. What things? Walter was silent. What things, Mr. Ashford? That is for Stillwater. Cordelia. I am sorry. That is not mine to tell. The Lexus turned east, onto the Taconic, into the rolling stone-walled country of upstate New York. Hills rose, trees bent in the wind. The rain turned to mist. The mist turned to fog, and Cordelia Bellwether, 30 years old in her scrubs, sat in the back of a stranger's car and held a photograph of her young, laughing mother, holding a baby that was not her, and she did not know what she was driving toward. But for the first time in 18 years, she wanted to find out. The fog thickened. The road narrowed. The Lexus turned finally off the paved highway onto a rutted dirt road that climbed up into the dark, wet pines. The headlights cut twin tunnels through the mist. Walter slowed. The dirt road wound for almost 3 miles. No mailboxes. No signs. No other houses. Just the pines and the fog and the silver rain on the windshield. Then the headlights caught something. A pair of stone pillars, old, mossed over, tall as a man on a horse, and between them, half strangled by decades of climbing ivy, a wrought iron gate. Walter stopped the car. He left the headlights on. He turned to look at her. You have the key. Cordelia held it up. It caught the light. Out of the car, Miss Bellwether. Welcome to Stillwater. She opened her door. The cold mountain air hit her, wet, sharp, smelling of pine and stone and something else, something underneath, something like lavender. She walked toward the gate, and the ivy parted, and somewhere on the other side, behind the fog and the trees, a light came on. A single lamp in a single window, waiting for her. The gate did not creak. That was the strange thing. Cordelia had expected creaking. She had expected the slow groan of old iron. She had expected fog and Gothic theatrics and the smell of decay. Instead, the hinges moved like silk because someone had been oiling them. For 17 years, Walter Ashford pulled the Lexus through the parted ivy and up a long, curving gravel drive. The headlights swept across rolling fields, a small wooden footbridge over a creek, an old apple orchard the trees twisted, and silver in the fog, a white painted fence, a pond. This was not a fortress. This was a home. The drive bent. The trees opened. And there it was. Stillwater Manor. It was not what Cordelia had braced herself for. It was not the limestone behemoth she had pictured. It was not Newport. It was not Long Island. It was a long, low farmhouse made of fieldstone, 2 stories, slate roof, a wraparound porch with white painted wicker, a pair of rocking chairs, a wreath of dried lavender on the front door. It looked like the kind of house a woman might write a poem about. It looked, Cordelia thought, like a place where her mother might have lived. A single lamp burned in the window beside the door. Walter parked. He did not get out. He turned in his seat and looked at her. "I will wait here. You're not coming in. This part is for you. Mr. Ashford. Walter, please. After today. Walter. Walter. I'm afraid." He smiled. It was the first time she had seen him smile. It was a small, tired thing. So was your mother. The first time she went through that door, she was 19 years old, and she stayed for 7 years. And she said, once, to me, that it was the only place in the world where she had ever been entirely herself. Cordelia stared at the porch, the lamp, the wreath. What if I'm not ready? You walked out of that boardroom with your head up. You took the coin, you opened it. You came 4 hours north in the rain. Ms. Bellwether, you have been ready for a very long time. She opened the car door. She stepped out onto the gravel, and as the cold mountain air filled her lungs, the front door of Stillwater Manor opened. A woman stood in the rectangle of warm light. She was small, maybe 5'2", 75 years old, silver hair pulled back into a soft, loose bun, a wool cardigan the color of cream, a pair of reading glasses on a chain around her neck, and eyes the color of a winter sky over an Irish coast. The woman put one hand to her mouth. She did not move from the doorway. She just stood there, looking at Cordelia, the way a woman looks at a ghost she has been waiting 18 years to see. "Oh," the woman breathed. Cordelia walked up the porch steps, slowly, one at a time. "Oh," the woman said again. "Oh, child, you are the very image of her. Bridget Donnelly, that's me. Yes, that's me. My father said, you were my mother's friend." "Friend." The old woman shook her head. The eyes were full now, brimming. "Friend is a very small word for what your mother was to me. Come in, Cordelia Elise. Come in out of the cold. There is tea, and there is fire, and there is so very much to tell you." She held out her arms, and Cordelia Bellwether, 30 years old, who had not been held by an older woman since she was 12, walked into them. The inside of Stillwater Manor smelled of lavender, not perfume, the real thing. Bundles of it hung from the ceiling beams in the kitchen, dried, old, mixed with something darker, cedar maybe, or pipe tobacco, some scent that had been 17 years in the wood. The floors were wide pine planks, worn smooth in front of the fireplace. A blue and white quilt was folded over the back of a sofa. There were books everywhere. On the windowsills, on the kitchen table, spilling out of a small library off the front hall. It was the house of a person who had loved books and tea and quiet mornings. It was the house of Elizabeth Bellwether. Before she was Bellwether. Before she was anyone's wife. Bridget led her into the kitchen, pressed her into a chair at a long, scrubbed pine table, set a kettle on the stove. Did not ask. Did not need to. Sit, she said. Just sit. Your bones know they are home, even if you do not. Yet. Cordelia sat. She looked around. A row of pegs by the back door. 3 old wool coats hanging. 2 adult-sized. 1 tiny. A child's coat, red, with little wooden toggle buttons. She did not breathe. Bridget caught her looking. Bridget did not flinch. Yes, that was hers. My mother's. No, sweetheart, that was Lillian's. The kettle whistled. Who? Cordelia whispered. Who is Lillian? Bridget poured the tea. She set 2 thick blue mugs on the table. She sat down across from Cordelia and folded her old hands around her mug, and she said very quietly, Cordelia, I am going to tell you something, and it is going to be very hard. Will you sit with me while I do? Yes, your mother, your beautiful mother, was married once, before your father. Cordelia did not move. His name was Daniel. He was a farmer. 2 hills over. They met when she was 18. They married when she was 20. And in the spring of 1991, they had a baby girl. Lillian. Lillian, yes. The brightest little face you ever saw. Hair like a copper penny. She lived for 6 months. And then there was a fever in the night, and by morning, she was gone. Cordelia felt her chest split. She had not known. In 30 years on this earth, she had not known her mother had been a mother before her. Daniel was lost after that. Just lost. He took to drinking. He left one night early in 92. Just walked out the door. Walked into the woods. We found his body in the river 2 days later. Oh, God. Your mother was 22 years old. Cordelia. 22 years old. A widow. And without her child. And she sat in this house. This house. Where you are sitting now. For an entire year. She did not speak. She barely ate. I came every day. I brought her food. I sat with her. Sometimes she would let me brush her hair. Sometimes she would not. Bridget's voice broke. She took a sip of tea. She steadied herself. And then, one day in 1993, she woke up and she said to me, Bridget, I am going to leave here because if I stay, the grief will eat me. And if I go, maybe I can find a way to be a person again. And she went to New York. She went to New York. Yes, she got a job at a small art gallery on 22nd Street. And in the summer of 1993, she met a man. He came into the gallery on a Tuesday afternoon to buy his mother a birthday present. He was 35. He was tall. He had eyes the color of cold water. And he was, she told me, the loneliest man she had ever met. My father, your father. Yes, Theodore Bellwether. And he sat in a folding chair in the back of that gallery for 3 hours, while your mother walked him through every painting on the walls. And by the end of those 3 hours, he told her, years later, that he had decided he was going to spend the rest of his life convincing her to marry him. How long? How long what, dear? How long until she said yes? Bridget laughed. It was wet, soft. 2 years, sweetheart, 2 years. He came every Saturday from Manhattan up to this house. He helped her mend the porch. He chopped wood. He read to her from those very books over there. The Russians mostly. Tolstoy, Chekhov. And after 2 years, she said yes. They married, right here, in the orchard, in the spring of 1995. And then, a year later, you came. Cordelia Elise, the redemption, the second chance, the little girl your mother had not believed she would be allowed to have. Cordelia put both hands over her face. She breathed. She did not cry yet. Not yet. Because the story was not done. She knew the story was not done. And then she got sick. And then she got sick, yes. And he took her to New York, to the city, away from here. Because the doctors there were the best, yes. And she went for you. So that you would have a mother for as long as possible. But, Cordelia, this house was where she wanted to die. And he would not bring her here. He could not. He said he could not. He said, if she came here, she would give up. She would let go. He was so afraid of losing her. He lost her anyway. Yes. And then he punished me for looking like her. The old woman shook her head. Hard. No, sweet girl, no, that is, the part. You do not understand yet. She stood up. She crossed the kitchen. She opened a drawer in the long pine sideboard. She pulled out a small wooden box. Old. The wood was dark walnut, a small brass latch. She set it in front of Cordelia. Open it. Cordelia opened it. Inside the box were letters, dozens of them. Cream envelopes, heavy paper, addressed in her mother's slanted hand. To Cordelia Elise Bellwether. She picked up the top one. The postmark said 2008. The month her mother had died. She turned it over. It was sealed. It had never been opened. He gave them to me, Bridget said. 3 years ago, after his diagnosis, he brought them all here. 84 letters. Your mother wrote you a letter every Sunday for the last 20 months of her life, so that you would have her words after she was gone. Cordelia's hands began to shake. He never gave them to me. He could not. Sweetheart, because every letter she wrote was a piece of her. And he was drowning He needed every piece, even the pieces that belonged to you. That is not love, Bridget. That is theft. You're right. It is. It was. He stole my mother from me twice. He did. And he knew it. And he could never forgive himself. Cordelia opened the first letter. She read it. She did not read it aloud, but somewhere on the page, halfway down, her mother had written, "My darling, by the time you are old enough to understand this, I will not be here. So I'm going to tell you everything I know about being a woman. And the first thing is this. The world will hand you reasons to be hard. Do not take them. Hardness is a kind of dying. The bravest thing a woman ever does is stay soft." Anyway, Cordelia put the letter down. She put her forehead on the kitchen table. And she finally, after 18 years, began to weep. She read letters until 3 in the morning. She read until the fire in the front room had burned down to embers, until her tea had gone cold 3 times, until Bridget had refilled the kettle 4 times and finally stopped offering. The letters were not all about dying. Most of them were not. Most of them were her mother, just being her mother, telling her about a sparrow she had watched outside her hospital window, about the way a nurse at Sloan Kettering had eyes like a Renaissance painting, about a dream she had where Cordelia was a grown woman in a white coat. Not a doctor. Something kinder. A nurse, maybe. Walking down a long, bright hallway and stopping. Just stopping. To hold an old woman's hand. Cordelia put that letter down. She thought of Edith Caldwell. She breathed in, slowly. She breathed out. My mother knew. What's that child? She knew I would be a nurse. She dreamed it. Years before I was born. Bridget smiled. Your mother knew a great many things, sweetheart. She had what my own grandmother called the long eye. She could see down corridors of time the rest of us cannot. She knew you. Before you were you. Cordelia closed the wooden box. She rested her hand on top of it. I want to see his journal. Whose journal? My father's. Bridget went very still. Walter said you would ask for it. Eventually. Now is eventually. Cordelia. Bridget. He has owed me a conversation for 10 years. He is dead. He cannot have it with me. So I will have it with the next best thing. The old woman nodded, slowly. It is upstairs, in the study, the leather one, on the desk. The study was on the 2nd floor. It faced east. There was a single window, a small green-shaded lamp, a roll-top desk that had clearly belonged to her mother once, her mother's, because the brass pulls were engraved with tiny lilies. But on the desk lay a man's journal, brown leather, worn at the spine, a thick rubber band around it. Cordelia sat in the chair. She unwrapped the band. She opened to the first page. The handwriting was her father's. The date was 1996. 6 months after she had been born. Elizabeth slept 4 hours last night. I held the baby. Cordelia. My Cordelia. I rocked her in the chair by the kitchen window. I thought I had not understood until tonight why my own father wept. The night I was born, I thought he was tired. He was not tired. He was unmade by love. I am unmade tonight. I would burn the world. For this small breathing thing, I would burn it twice. Cordelia turned the page. She turned more pages. She skipped years. She found 2008, October. Sloan Kettering. The doctor says 4 weeks, possibly 6. Elizabeth is asleep. Cordelia is reading to her in a chair beside the bed. She is 12. She does not understand yet that this is the last month. She thinks her mother is going to wake up and come home. I cannot bring myself to tell her. I am a coward. I have built 6 terminals across 3 continents. I have moved fleets through wartime ports. I cannot say to my own daughter, "Your mother is leaving us." She turned more pages. She found 2010. Vivian told me today that she wants Cordelia in boarding school. She says it is for the girl's own good, that a teenager needs structure. I told her no. She said, "Theodore." The child looks at me like I murdered her mother. I cannot live in a house with a child who looks at me like that. So either she goes or I go. God forgive me. I did not let her go. God forgive me. I let my daughter go instead. Cordelia put her hand over her mouth. She turned more pages. She found 2014, the year she had refused Wharton, the year he had called her stubborn and stupid, the year she had always believed he had finally chosen to be done with her. Cordelia told me tonight she's going to nursing school. I yelled at her. I called her stupid. I called her stubborn. I watched her face go very still, the way her mother's used to go still, when she was hurt and could not let me see. I yelled at her, because if I had not yelled, I would have wept. And if I had wept, I would have told her the truth, which is that I am proud, so proud, that she has the spine her father does not have, that she will be the hands her mother dreamed of. But I cannot tell her, because Vivian is watching, and Vivian, I think, I am beginning to understand, will hurt anyone whom I am seen to love. Cordelia closed the journal. She sat in the small, green-shaded lamplight. She did not breathe for a long time, because the man she had hated for 10 years, the man she had buried in her own heart, years before they buried him in the ground, had not been the man she thought he was. He had been a coward, but he had been a coward in love. She came back downstairs at 3:30. Bridget was still in the kitchen. The old woman had not slept. There was a fresh pot of tea. "I need to see the video," Cordelia said. What video? He left a video. Walter told me. The micro SD in the coin. He said, there is a player in the cellar. There is. Down the stairs by the pantry. There is a door. The key is on the ring by the back porch. Cordelia took the key ring. She walked to the back porch. She unlocked a small painted door. She walked down a flight of narrow wooden stairs. And what she found at the bottom was not a cellar. It was a small modern computer room. White walls. Climate control. A single desk. A monitor. A card reader. And a heavy steel door in the back wall with a biometric lock. She did not go through the steel door. Not yet. She sat at the desk. She slid the micro SD card out of the velvet inside of the silver dollar. She slid it into the reader. The monitor flickered. A loading bar. A face appeared on the screen. Her father. But not the father she remembered. He was old, gray, so thin. His cheekbones cut shadows down his face. He was sitting in the very study she had just left, wearing a thick wool cardigan, and his hands shook as he reached for the camera to adjust it. Cordelia, he said. His voice cracked. My darling, if you are watching this, I am gone, and you have come to Stillwater, which means you found the coin, which means Walter did not betray me, which means there is still hope for this terrible thing I have done. He coughed. I am being murdered, Cordelia. I want you to know this, plainly, so you do not have to discover it slowly. Vivian and Preston have been slowly increasing my heart medication. Digitalis. They began 18 months ago. The toxicology will confirm it. Walter has the reports from Johns Hopkins. The samples I gave secretly in the fall of last year. Cordelia gripped the edge of the desk. I cannot stop them without destroying the company, without destroying 12,000 families who work for us. So I will not stop them. I will let them win the visible part. He smiled. It was the smile of a dying man who had finally outsmarted his murderers. They think they are inheriting an empire. They are not. They are inheriting a corpse. Bellwether Global is leveraged to the rafters, quietly, slowly, over the last 3 years. I have moved every untraceable asset off the books into a trust. Cordelia, listen to me. He leaned closer. There is a trust, called the Elizabeth Trust, after your mother. $2.4 billion in gold, in bearer bonds, in land, in a vault. Behind you, as you watch this, the key is in the silver dollar. The combination is the day your mother was born, February the 3rd. The trust is yours, outright, probate-free, tax-free, off the books, untouchable. 2.4 billion. She said it aloud, to the empty cellar. The number did not feel like a number. It felt like a stone. Her father's recording kept speaking. You will be tempted, my brilliant girl, to use this, to destroy them. Do not. Be smarter than that. Be better than that. The evidence is enough. The toxicology, the bank records, the forensic accounting. Walter has it all. Take it to the authorities. Let the law be the law. Do not become me. Do not become your stepmother. Use this money to heal, not to harm. Use it the way your mother would have used it if she had ever had it. He took a long, shuddering breath. I am so sorry, Cordelia, for every Christmas I missed, for every birthday I let her stand in for me at, for every time you looked at me and waited for me to say, I love you, and I let the silence answer instead. I am sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The screen went black. Cordelia sat in the cellar. She did not move. She listened to the hum of the climate control, the low click of the hard drive, the slow breathing of her own rib cage. $2.4 billion. A vault. Behind her, with her mother's birthday as the combination, a father she had not understood until tonight. She stood up. She turned around. The steel door waited. She walked toward it. She did not need to open it. She knew what was inside. The vault could wait. The vault did not matter yet. The vault, she suddenly understood, was a tool, not a treasure. What mattered now was what she did with it. She turned back to the monitor. She ejected the card. She climbed the stairs. She had just reached the top of the cellar stairs when her phone rang. She had forgotten she had reception up here. She looked at the screen. St. Catherine's Hospital. It was 4 in the morning. She answered. This is Cordelia. Nurse Bellwether, it's Marisol. From night shift. Marisol, what's wrong? There was a long silence on the line. It's Mrs. Caldwell. Edith. Yes, Cordelia. I am so sorry. We lost her. About 40 minutes ago. Cordelia stopped breathing. That cannot be right. She was stable when I left. I know. Her blood pressure was 120/70. Her oxygen was at 97 on room air. She was. Marisol. She was fine. I know. What happened? We don't know. Yet. The attending says it. It looks like an arrest, but Cordelia. There is something else. What? There was a visitor. About 2 hours after you left. A man. He said he was her grandnephew. From Phoenix. He showed ID. He sat with her. For an hour. Cordelia's stomach turned to glass. She doesn't have a grandnephew in Phoenix. I know. We found out. After. Her file says no living relatives. Marisol. He left around midnight. She was fine. The night nurse checked on her at 1. She was fine. She was checked again at 2:30, and she was gone. Cordelia pressed her hand against the wall of the back porch to stop the world from tilting. A man had walked into her hospital, had sat with Edith Caldwell for 1 hour, and then Edith Caldwell, who had no relatives, no money, no threats, no enemies, had died in her sleep 2 hours after he left. Cordelia, are you there? I'm here. Cordelia. The thing is, I shouldn't tell you this, but I pulled the lobby cameras before I called you. The man, he had a tattoo on his wrist. A small one, a spade. Inside a triangle. A spade in a triangle. Does that mean something to you? Cordelia closed her eyes. It did, because she had grown up in a house where her stepmother's first husband had run a private security firm. Before he had conveniently died 12 years ago of a heart attack. The firm was called Trident Black. Their logo was a spade in a triangle. She did not say any of this to Marisol. She said, Marisol, thank you for calling me. Hold the body. Do not release it to anyone until I get back. Cordelia, are you in trouble? I am. Going to be. Yes. She hung up. She stood in the back hallway of Stillwater Manor. She slid down the wall. She sat on the cold stone floor. She put her face in her hands, and she cried for Edith Caldwell. For the second time in 8 hours, Cordelia Bellwether wept because a 75-year-old woman with cloudy blue eyes and a lullaby in her memory had died. Because of Cordelia. Because Vivian had assumed that the nurse from Queens must have a confidant, must have a person to whom she had whispered everything she knew. And the only person Cordelia had spent any real time with that day, other than the lawyer, was the old woman in bed 14. So they had killed her to plug a leak. That did not exist. Cordelia could not stop crying. She did not hear Bridget come down the back hallway. She did not hear the soft, slippered footsteps. She only felt, after a long time, a warm hand on her shoulder. Sweet girl. They killed her, Bridget. They killed an innocent old woman because of me. Tell me what happened. She told her. Bridget held her. The old woman did not cry. Bridget Donnelly had been crying for 18 years already. There were no new tears in her. Only an old strength. Quiet. Stubborn. Irish. Cordelia. I should never have come here. I should have taken the $1 and walked away and let them keep the empire and gone home, and Edith would still stop. Bridget, no, stop. You listen to me, Cordelia Elise Bellwether. You listen now because your mother would not want you to think this way for one more minute. My mother is dead. Your mother is not. Bridget, your mother is in this house. She is in those letters. She is in the wool of that little red coat. And she is in you. And what she would say to you right now is this: sweet girl, the world has not become more dangerous because you found out the truth. The world is exactly as dangerous as it always was. You just now know it. Cordelia looked up at her. The old woman's face was very close. They will keep killing people, Cordelia whispered. Yes, until I stop them. Yes, I do not know how. You will. There was a knock at the front door, soft, 3 times. Bridget's hand tightened on Cordelia's shoulder. That will be Father Aloysius. Who? The parish priest, from the church down the hill. I called him while you were in the cellar. I thought you might need him. I am not religious. Sweetheart, I did not call you a priest. I called you a friend. Cordelia stood up. She wiped her face with the heel of her hand. She straightened her scrubs. She walked to the front door. She opened it. A man stood on the porch. He was perhaps 60 years old, tall, stooped, wearing a black coat and a soft black hat. His face was very kind. He held a small black umbrella, even though the rain had stopped. And he held it the way some men hold things, with care. Cordelia. Father, may I come in? Yes. He sat at the kitchen table. He took off his hat. His white hair was thin on top, longer at the sides. He did not say any of the things she had been afraid he would say. He did not say, God has a plan. He did not say, she is in a better place. He did not. Open a Bible. He looked at her for a long time. Then he said, very simply, tell me about Edith. She blinked. What? Tell me about her. Tell me her name. Tell me her face. Tell me what made her laugh. So Cordelia did. She told him about the blue blanket. She told him about the cloudy left eye. She told him about the Phoenix grandnephew who never called. She told him about the lullaby. She told him about how Edith had once squeezed her hand so hard after a bad night and had said, I think you must have come from somewhere very good to know how to be this kind. When she finished, Father Aloysius nodded. You did not kill her. Father, Cordelia, I am not a man who tells comforting lies. I am too old for them. They are too tiring. Listen to me. The man who walked into her room did. You did not. And the woman who sent him did. You did not. You loved Edith Caldwell. You sang her into her sleep. And then, while you were not there, wicked people did a wicked thing to use her. The blame for that belongs to them, not to you. If I had not come here, if you had not come here, they would have done it later, to someone else, to the next person you cared about. There is no version of this story in which you walk in a way saves anyone. There is only a version in which you stay and you stop them, and no one else has to die. She nodded. She could not speak. He reached across the table and laid one large, weathered hand over both of hers. I am going to give you one thing. That is all. And then I will leave you to your grief and to your friend. Yes, you are not your father, Cordelia. She breathed in, hard, shocked. You are not your father. Whatever he did, whatever silences he kept, whatever harm he caused or allowed, that is not your inheritance. Your inheritance is the woman in those letters, the one who told you to keep your heart soft. You can stop your stepmother without becoming her. There is a path through this. That does not require you to give up your soul to walk it. Do you understand me? I am trying. Try. That is all anyone asks. He stood up. He put on his hat. He picked up his umbrella. At the door, he turned back. And Cordelia, yes, when you do find out what to do next, call me. I am old, and I am tired, but I have friends. Up and down the valley, good women, quiet men. We are not without our own, small kinds of power. Then he walked out into the dawn light, and the door closed behind him, and the soft thump of the lavender wreath against the wood was, for a moment, the only sound in the world. It was nearly 6. Cordelia stood at the kitchen window and watched the sun come up over the hills behind the orchard. The light was gray, then pink, then gold. It touched the apple trees. It touched the wet grass. It touched a small stone bench near the pond, where a woman had once sat, reading a book, pregnant with a daughter she would not live to see grow up. She heard the car before she saw it. Tires on gravel, slow, confident. Cordelia leaned forward. The car appeared at the end of the long drive. It was a black Bentley, polished, expensive. Wrong. Wrong here. Wrong at Stillwater. Wrong in the gold morning light. The car stopped at the bottom of the porch. The driver opened the back door, and Vivian Bellwether stepped out in a white cashmere coat, white gloves, white heels, her platinum hair pulled back into a low chignon. She looked at 6 in the morning in the middle of the Massachusetts wilderness, like a woman who had arrived at a charity luncheon, 400 miles from where the charity luncheon was being held. She walked up the porch steps. She did not knock. She opened the front door, and she stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at Cordelia and smiled. "Hello, darling." Cordelia did not move. "You're not surprised to see me?" "No. Walter is so much less clever than he thinks he is. We have been watching this house for years. I have known about Bridget. I have known about Stillwater. I have known about the letters, the journal, the little video your father made. I have known all of it. From the day Theodore bought this place, Then why didn't you take it? Vivian tilted her head. Because I did not want it, darling. I wanted him, and I had him, and the rest was just real estate. Why are you here? To make you an offer? No. You haven't heard it. No. Vivian walked slowly into the kitchen. She trailed one white gloved finger along the back of a chair. She looked at the wreath, the letters, the cooling teapot. She turned. She faced Cordelia. I know about the trust. I know about the vault. I know about the gold. I do not want it. You don't. No, I have everything I want. I have the company. I have the apartment. I have the title. Mrs. Bellwether. I waited 17 years for that title. And I have it. What I want from you is silence. Bury what you have learned. Sign over the trust to me, and I will let you live. You will let me. Yes, you will let me live. Yes, like you let Edith Caldwell live. For one moment, one tiny moment, Vivian's face, the composed china face, cracked. It was not remorse. It was not even pity. It was something colder. It was the recognition of an opponent. You were not supposed to find out about that for days, Cordelia. I work in a hospital. We talk to each other. You killed an old woman. I did not kill her. A contractor killed her. There is a difference. There is no difference. There is, darling. The difference is, I do not have to do these things. I have people. For these things. Cordelia stepped forward. She was a head taller than her stepmother. She had not realized that before. You killed my mother. The kitchen went still. The clock on the wall ticked. Vivian held her gaze. Your mother died of cancer, Cordelia. She did. Yes. But you were at her bedside the last week. I have always wondered. Why? I was being a comfort to your father. You were not. You were waiting for her to be too weak to stop you. You are speculating. I am remembering. Vivian did not flinch. Remembering what? Remembering the day I came into her room and you were leaning very close to her face and you were whispering to her. And when you saw me, you stood up and you smiled and you said, your mother is so tired, darling. So very tired. And she said, right after you left, Cordelia, she said to me, sweet girl, if anything happens, promise me you will not ever be alone with that woman. Vivian's smile faded. For the first time in 17 years, it faded. What did you say to her, Vivian, that afternoon, when you thought she was too weak to remember? I do not have to answer that. You told her to let go, didn't you? Silence. You told her the cancer was going to kill her anyway, so she should stop trying, so she should stop hanging on for me. You told a dying woman to give up so that you could have her husband sooner. Vivian's gloved hand went to the back of the chair, steadied her for just a half second. Then her smile returned. You cannot prove a word of that, Cordelia. No. Good. I do not need to prove it. What? You came here, Vivian, to frighten me. And in coming here, you did something you should not have done. You confirmed to me that I am right about all of it. Now go. Cordelia, get out of my mother's house. Vivian held her ground for one long moment. Then she turned. She walked out of the kitchen. She walked through the front room. She paused at the front door. She turned back. You are a small woman, Cordelia, in a small town, with a small fortune, and a dead daddy. You think you can stop me. You cannot. Watch me. The door closed. The Bentley pulled away, and Cordelia Bellwether stood in her mother's kitchen, in her scrubs with the sun pouring gold through the windows. And she did not move for a very long time. Then she walked outside, across the wet grass, to the small stone bench by the pond. There was a small chapel back in the orchard, a tiny thing, white clapboard, one stained glass window, built by her mother's first husband, Daniel. A century ago, his father had built it for his wife to pray in. Cordelia walked to the chapel. She opened the door. She knelt down on the wooden kneeler. She did not know any of the right prayers. She had not been to church since her mother's funeral. She just folded her hands, and she said out loud into the empty chapel, I do not want vengeance. I do not want her destroyed. I want her stopped. I want Edith to be the last. I want my mother returned to me in the only way she can be. I want to do this the way my mother would have done it, with my heart still soft. Help me. Whoever is listening, help me. Find a way. She knelt there for a very long time. The light came in through the stained glass. It made a small blue pool on the wooden floor. When she finally stood up, the sun was full and gold over the orchard, and Cordelia Bellwether, 30 years old, daughter of Elizabeth, daughter of a promise, knew what she was gonna do. She did not call the FBI that morning. She made coffee instead. Cordelia stood in her mother's kitchen and watched the pot brew, and she thought about how strange it was that even now, with everything broken, water still boiled, coffee still steeped. The world did not stop, even for grief, even for murder, even for women in white cashmere coats. She poured 2 cups. She brought one to Bridget. The old woman was sitting on the wraparound porch in one of the white wicker rockers wrapped in a wool blanket. She had not slept either. Her eyes were red. Her hands were still. "Bridget, sweetheart, I need your help. Anything. I need to make some phone calls. Quietly. From this house." Walter said, "The line here is secure." "It is. Your father had it laid 3 years ago. Underground. From the substation." "Good. I need you to make me a list. A list of every person my mother loved, who is still alive, in the valley, the town, anyone she trusted. I do not care if they are 75. I do not care if they have forgotten her name. I want a list." Bridget set down her coffee. She looked at Cordelia for a long moment. Then she stood up. The blanket fell away. Her small old back straightened in a way Cordelia had not seen yet. "Give me an hour." "I have an hour." The old woman walked into the house. Cordelia sat down in the rocker. The wicker creaked. The morning fog was lifting. The orchard was wet and green and gold. A robin landed on the porch railing, looked at her, tilted its head, flew away. She thought of Edith Caldwell. She did not cry this time. She felt something settle in her chest. A stillness. The kind of stillness a woman feels when she has stopped being afraid of what she is about to do. Walter Ashford came at 8. He had not slept either. His tie was crooked. He had brought a leather briefcase. He had brought 2 FBI agents. The agents were a woman in her 40s and a man in his 50s. The woman was named Agent Sandoval. She was small and quiet, and her eyes did not miss anything. The man was named Agent Brennan. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had been hunting wicked people for 30 years and had not yet caught all of them. They sat at the long pine table. Bridget brought tea, brought scones, brought a basket of small green apples. No one ate. Walter laid out the file. It was thick. Toxicology reports from Johns Hopkins, bank records, wire transfers, forensic accounting from a firm in Zurich, photographs, affidavits, recordings. Agent Sandoval went through it, page by page. She did not say a word for 40 minutes. When she looked up, her face was a stone. "Miss Bellwether." "Yes. This is the most thorough private case file I have seen in 19 years at the Bureau. My father was a thorough man. With your permission, we will be filing federal charges by end of business today. Conspiracy to commit murder, wire fraud, racketeering, tampering with a controlled substance, possibly. Murder of a federal witness." Edith was not a federal witness. She was, as of this morning, Ms. Bellwether. We are going to amend the timeline, posthumously. Cordelia closed her eyes. "Will you be able to get them?" Agent Sandoval did not blink. "Yes. And Beatrice. Beatrice. My stepsister. She is. I do not think she knew." The agent considered this. "We have already looked at her. We do not have evidence that she participated. We do not have evidence that she knew. We do not have evidence that she did not." Right now, she is tangential. Could she remain tangential? That depends on what she does when the building comes down. What do you mean? Ms. Bellwether, I have worked organized crime for 19 years. People do one of two things. When the building comes down, they run, or they help the other side. Pick up the bricks. Which one she does will tell us whether she is a victim or an accomplice. Cordelia nodded. She breathed in. She breathed out. I need to talk to her. Beatrice. Yes. Ms. Bellwether. That is not the standard procedure. I am not asking for standard procedure. I am asking for one phone call. To my stepsister. Before you raid her mother's home. So that she has a chance to choose. Agent Brennan, who had not spoken once, spoke now. Sandoval. Yes. Let her make the call. Brennan. She is going to give us the biggest case of our careers. Let her make the damn call. Agent Sandoval looked at him. She looked at Cordelia. She nodded once. You have until tomorrow noon. Make the call. Make it count. Cordelia called Beatrice at 10:30 in the morning. The phone rang 4 times. A small voice answered. Cordelia. Beatrice. A long silence. How did you get this number? It is in my father's papers. It has been in my father's papers for 10 years. Oh, Beatrice, I am going to ask you something, and I need you to listen very carefully before you answer. All right. How much do you know? The silence stretched. It stretched. It stretched. And then Beatrice Bellwether, 27 years old, whom the world had spent its whole life calling beautiful and foolish and spoiled, whispered into the phone, all of it. I know, all of it. Cordelia closed her eyes. For how long? Since the spring, when the doctors said, hospice. I went into his bathroom to get him a glass of water, and his pill bottle was sitting on the counter, and the label was wrong. Cordelia, the dose was wrong. I had filled it at the pharmacy the week before. I knew what dose he was on, and it was wrong. You knew. I knew. You did nothing. I did everything I could think of. Cordelia. I switched the bottles. I went to the pharmacy. I bought him new medication. I switched them quietly while they were not looking. I bought him 3 more weeks. Cordelia gripped the phone. You bought him 3 weeks. And then she caught me. She did not say anything. She just looked at me across the dining room table the next morning, and I understood that if I tried again, I would be next. Beatrice, I am a coward, Cordelia. You are not. I am. I am a coward. I should have called the police. I should have. gone to him. I should have told you. I did not do any of those things. I just switched the pills one time, and then I let him die because I was frightened of my mother. Beatrice, listen to me. I am listening. Where are you right now? I am at the apartment. Mother is at her hair appointment. Preston is. I do not know. Probably drunk somewhere. Get out of the apartment. What? Get out of that apartment today, this morning. Pack a bag, a small one. Leave your phone. Leave your computer. Leave your jewelry. Take cash. Take your passport. Take any photographs that matter to you. And get out. Cordelia, where do I go? You take a cab to Grand Central. You take a Metro North train to Wasaic, the last stop. I will meet you there at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Beatrice, do you understand me? I cannot. You can. She will know by tomorrow at noon. The FBI will be at the door of that apartment with a warrant. They will arrest your mother. They will arrest your brother. And they will look very, very hard at you because you are a bellwether by adoption. And the only difference between you and them by the end of the week will be where you slept tomorrow night. Now, get out of that apartment. The line was quiet. Cordelia could hear her stepsister breathing. Then, very softly, Beatrice said, Cordelia, yes, he loved you, you know. Cordelia closed her eyes. I know, Beatrice, I know now. I will be at Wasaic at 3. I will be there. She hung up the phone. She put it down on the kitchen counter. She put her forehead against the cool tile of the wall, and she stood there for a very long time and did not move. She met Beatrice at Wasaic Station at 4 minutes past 3. The train was a few minutes late. Beatrice came down the platform alone. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, and her hair was in a low ponytail, and she had no makeup on her face, and she was carrying a small leather duffel. Cordelia had not seen her stepsister without makeup since they were both teenagers. Beatrice looked young and tired, and like a girl whose mother had taught her. From age 11, that love was something you traded for, not something you were given. She did not run. She did not cry. She walked, steady, across the platform, and when she reached Cordelia, she set down her bag, and she said, "Thank you for not leaving me with her." Cordelia opened her arms. Beatrice walked into them. The two stepsisters, who had spent 17 years, speaking only when forced, held each other on a train platform in the cold afternoon sun. of upstate New York. And then they got in the Lexus, and they drove back to Stillwater. The next morning at 11:58 a.m., the FBI arrested Vivian Bellwether at her hairdresser on Madison Avenue. She was in a chair, highlights in progress. She did not run. She did not scream. She simply turned in the chair. She looked at Agent Sandoval. She smiled. The same composed China smile she had been smiling for 17 years. And she said, "I would like to call my attorney. Please." They took her out in handcuffs through the back service entrance, 2 blocks east. At the same moment, Preston Bellwether was arrested at a club called the Heirs. He was high. He was drunk. He had not slept in 2 days. He tried to swing at one of the agents. They took him down hard. He cried. By 2 p.m., it was on every news ticker in the city. By 4, it was on every news ticker in the country. Bellwether heirs arrested in murder of family patriarch. The stock of Bellwether Global Logistics dropped 22% in the last hour of trading. The board called an emergency meeting for the following morning. They needed someone to be the face. They needed someone to save them. They called Walter Ashford. Walter Ashford said, "Let me check with my client." Cordelia walked into the boardroom of Bellwether Global Logistics. At 9 the following morning, she did not wear a suit. She did not wear Saint Laurent. She did not wear Gucci. She did not wear a single thread of black silk. She wore a simple gray wool dress that had belonged to her mother from a wardrobe at Stillwater. It was 18 years old. It still fit her, almost perfectly. Around her neck on a thin silver chain hung her mother's wedding ring. Beside it, a small silver cross that Father Aloysius had given to her the morning before on the porch. She wore her sensible nursing shoes. She carried no folder. She carried no notes. She walked into a room of 14 middle-aged men and 3 women, all in the most expensive suits on earth. And she sat at the head of the long table. And the room went silent. She did not introduce herself. They knew who she was. The world, by now, knew. She folded her hands on the polished walnut. She spoke. "Good morning. Ms. Bellwether, I am here because my father built this company because 12,400 men and women wake up every morning and go to work for Bellwether Global because they have mortgages and children and aging parents and medical bills and dreams that depend on a paycheck that this building has sent them every 2 weeks for decades." The room did not breathe. I am told that this company is leveraged to the rafters because my father deliberately leveraged it to bait a trap. I am told that the stock has cratered. I am told that without an injection of immediate capital, there will be layoffs within 30 days of perhaps 4,000 people. A man in a charcoal suit, the acting CFO, nodded once. I am also told that I, personally, have access to approximately $2.4 billion in off-book assets that were quietly set aside by my father for exactly this moment. Silence. So here is what is going to happen. She paused. She looked at every face in the room. 1. The Elizabeth Trust will, effective today, inject $1.2 billion into Bellwether Global Logistics as a subordinated loan at zero interest to stabilize operations for the next 18 months. There will be no layoffs of hourly workers. None. 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 We are clear on that. Yes. The CFO swallowed, nodded. 2. Senior leadership will take a 50% reduction in compensation for the 18-month period. The acting CFO, the general counsel, the COO, the board, yourselves, half, for a year and a half, if you cannot live on half of what you make. For 18 months, you will resign today, and I will find someone who can. Are we clear? 2 of the men turned the color of cold soup. The CFO nodded again, quickly. 3. The entire executive suite will be relocated from this tower to the operations center in Jersey City, where the actual work is done. We will sell this building. We do not need a tower on Park Avenue to move shipping containers. We need a roof and a server farm and maybe a cafeteria. That does not charge people $28 for a sandwich. A small laugh from one of the women cut short. 4. Effective today, I am establishing the Bellwether Family Trust for the children and dependents of every employee of this company. It will fund tuition, medical emergencies, funerals, down payments, the way my father should have done for 30 years and did not, because he was too busy building this tower. The CFO was quietly writing all of it down. 5. She paused. She looked at Walter. He nodded once. I am not going to run this company. The room shifted. I am 30 years old. I am a nurse. I do not know how to run a logistics empire. I will not pretend I do. We will be conducting a search for a chief executive officer, someone with actual experience, someone with actual integrity. I will sit on the board As the controlling shareholder, I will vote the bellwether shares. I will not run the trains. Are we clear? The CFO smiled for the first time. Yes, ma'am. 6 and last. She looked at the man at the far end of the table. He was old. He was thin. His name was Hollis Tremaine. He had been chairman of the board for 19 years. He had been her father's closest friend. He had also. Cordelia knew now, quietly, voted with Vivian 3 years running on every major proposal. That had cost her father his company by inches. Mr. Tremaine, he looked up. Yes, you will resign. Effective end of business. Today, we will pay out your contract. You will keep your pension. We will not pursue the shareholder suit. That I have the grounds to pursue against you. In exchange, you will quietly disappear from the board. Pretend you were ill. Use any face-saving story you like. Are we clear? Hollis Tremaine, the kingmaker, the deal broker, the man who had bullied 200 boards in 30 cities, looked at the 30-year-old nurse in a gray wool dress and nodded. Yes, ma'am. Good. She stood up. Walter will email all of you the paperwork by close of business. Lunch is at 12:30, I am told. That the cafeteria is decent. She walked out. She did not look back. She did not need to. She went after the meeting to St. Catherine's Hospital. She went in through the side entrance, the one only nurses know. She walked up to the 4th floor, to the ICU. She did not stop at the front desk. The night-charge nurse who was just coming on saw her and nodded once and went back to her chart. Cordelia walked down the corridor. She stopped at the door of bed 14. A new patient was there now. An old man with white hair, sleeping. The blue blanket Edith had used was gone, replaced by a beige one, cheaper. Probably came from a different supply closet. She stood in the doorway for a long time. Then she walked to the small chapel on the 2nd floor that every big hospital has, and almost no one ever goes to. She sat down in the back pew, and she put her face in her hands, and she said, to Edith Caldwell, wherever Edith Caldwell now was, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. You were kind. You were good. You did not deserve to be a tool in someone else's game. I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure no one else has to be a tool like that. I am going to use your name to keep other old women from being alone. I am going to remember you by name, every single day. She sat there until a young nursing student came in, sat down, 2 pews away. The student did not know her. The student was just tired. The way young nurses get in their second year. Cordelia waited. When the student stood up to leave, Cordelia stood up too and walked over. Rough shift. The student startled. Oh, yeah, we lost. We lost 3 in the last week on the floor. I do not know if I can do this. What's your name? Mia. Mia Castellanos. Mia, can I tell you something that a very good nurse once told me? Sure. You did not kill them. The thing that killed them. You loved them. You held them. You charted them. You were the last kind face that some of them saw. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. The student blinked. She did not cry, not yet. But she nodded. Thank you. You are welcome, Mia. Are you a nurse here? I used to be. You're her, aren't you? I am someone. You're the one from the news, the one with the trial. Cordelia smiled. I am. Sometimes. I am also. Just Cordelia. Mia Castellanos, 24 years old, from the Bronx, looked at her and said, You came back here, after everything, to sit in a chapel in your old hospital. Yes. Why? Because I needed to remember who I was before I was Cordelia. Bellwether. Mia nodded. Slowly. She held out her hand. Cordelia shook it. Get some sleep, Mia. Yes, ma'am. Cordelia walked out of the chapel, out of the hospital, into the cold November afternoon. A black car was waiting. She got in. Walter Ashford handed her a hot coffee. Where to, Cordelia? Home, Walter. Take me home. Manhattan or Stillwater. Stillwater, yes. The car pulled away from the curb. The trial of Vivian Bellwether took 6 months. It was the trial of the decade. The trial of the century. By month 2, there were satellite trucks parked permanently on the courthouse steps. By month 3, every cable news network had its own legal analyst. By month 4, 3 different cable movies had been announced. Cordelia did not give interviews. She did not sit for a single profile. She did not walk a single red carpet. She walked into the courthouse every morning in the same gray wool dress, or one like it, with her mother's ring at her collarbone and Father Aloysius's small cross. And she sat in the second row, and she watched as her stepmother was methodically disassembled by a federal prosecutor named Yara Okonkwo, who, Was Cordelia thought perhaps the most precise human being she had ever seen? She did not testify. She did not have to. The toxicology spoke. The bank records spoke. Preston, when offered 18 years off his sentence in exchange for cooperation, spoke for 31 hours. The case was, as Agent Sandoval had said, airtight. The jury came back in 4 hours. Guilty. On all counts, Vivian Bellwether, 45 years old, daughter of a man who had once been fired from a bellwether factory and had killed himself a month later, was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. She did not look at Cordelia. Cordelia did not look at her until, just before the bailiff let her out, Vivian turned in her seat, and she met Cordelia's eyes for a full, long second, and her face did something Cordelia did not expect. It softened, not in regret, not in apology, in recognition. It was the face of a woman who had spent her whole life hating the world because the world had taken her father and had perhaps in this final second recognized that another daughter of another father had handled the same loss differently. She did not say a word. Neither did Cordelia. Vivian turned away. The bailiff let her out, and Cordelia Bellwether, 31 years old now, walked out of the courthouse into the spring sunshine of late April. And she did not feel triumph. She did not feel joy. She felt the way one feels when a long sickness finally breaks, tired and clean. Beatrice Bellwether lived at Stillwater Manor for 19 months. She arrived a girl in an oversized sweater with 3 changes of clothes and a duffel bag. She left a woman. She left at 29 to take a job as a curatorial assistant at the small art museum in Williamstown, 2 valleys over. She wanted to be near. She said, the hills, and the orchard, and the old red coat that had belonged to a sister she had never met. Because Bridget had told her, too, the story of Lillian. Because the story of Lillian belonged, now, to all of them. The first thing Beatrice did, when she got her first paycheck from the museum, was send a single check for her entire salary to a small Catholic nursing home in Phoenix, the nursing home that took in old women whose grandnephews did not pick up the phone. The check was made out in the name of Edith Caldwell. Cordelia found out about it a year later by accident. She did not mention it to her stepsister. Some kinds of grace should be allowed to stay quiet. Walter Ashford retired the following spring. He did not return to Manhattan. He moved. Cordelia found out to a small town in Vermont where he had grown up. He took up beekeeping. He sent her a jar of honey every Christmas, wrapped in brown paper, with a note that said, always, only one sentence. Your father would be proud. She kept the notes in the drawer of the desk upstairs, beside the journal she had read, cover to cover, in her first year at Stillwater, the journal that had broken her heart and, slowly, stitched it back. Father Aloysius died in the second autumn. He had not been ill. He was simply old. He sat down, after Mass, in his small office, behind the chapel, to take off his shoes, and his great heart stopped. Cordelia held his funeral at Stillwater, in the orchard, where her mother had been married. 300 people came, half the valley. The line of cars went a mile down the dirt road. She did not give a eulogy. Bridget did. The old woman stood beside the coffin and said, "Aloysius told me once that a parish was not a building. A parish was a circle of women, holding each other and asking the priest to hold the candle. He held our candles for 38 years. Now we hold his." There was not a dry eye in the orchard after Cordelia walked with his small white dog, whom no one else had wanted, down to the pond, and she sat on the bench, and the dog put its head on her knee, and she said to the empty air, "Thank you for telling me I was not my father. I am still becoming whatever it is I am instead." She kept the dog. She named him Aloysius. He slept at the foot of her bed for the next 9 years. The Elizabeth Bellwether Foundation was incorporated in the second spring. It funded ovarian cancer research at 12 hospitals across the country. It built a small community clinic in Queens, in the neighborhood where Cordelia had been a nurse, 2 streets from her old apartment. The clinic was free for anyone without insurance. It had a wing for women's reproductive health, and a wing for elder care, and a small chapel off the lobby with a stained glass window that a glass artist in Massachusetts had made from the design of the chapel at Stillwater Manor. Cordelia worked 2 days a week at the clinic as a registered nurse. She did not run it. She did not manage it. She did not sit on its board. She just showed up on Tuesdays and Thursdays and took blood pressures and ran lab orders and held the hands of women who had nowhere else to bring their fear. By the second year, the patients knew her. By the third year, none of them knew who she was beyond Cordelia, the kind one, the tall nurse with the steady hands. She liked that. She liked it very much. She had been at Stillwater for 4 years when she finally went back On a gray morning in November, 22 years to the day since her own mother had died, Cordelia Bellwether drove, alone, to a small cemetery in western Connecticut. It was the cemetery where her mother was buried. She had not been since the funeral. She had not been able to go until now. She parked at the gate. She walked through the wet grass. She found the stone. Elizabeth Whitlock Bellwether, 1972, 1008. Beloved. She knelt down. She brushed wet leaves off the top of the stone she placed beside the small bronze vase where someone had been bringing fresh flowers. For 22 years, the tarnished 1922 peace dollar. She did not push it into the earth. She set it on the stone. She rested her hand on top of it. She spoke, not in her head, out loud, to her mother. Hello, Mama. The wind moved through the cypress trees. I came to tell you. I kept my promise. I did not let the world make my heart hard. They tried so hard. They handed me reasons, just like you said they would, reasons that were good reasons by the time they were through with me. But I did not take them. I stayed soft, Mama. I stayed so very soft. She closed her eyes. I am 34 years old now. I work 2 days a week at a clinic. I have a dog. I have a stepsister. I have a house with lavender hanging in the kitchen. I have Bridget's quilt on my bed. I have 84 letters from you. I read one every Sunday. I have been reading them for 4 years now. I have not run out yet because I read them very slowly. The wind touched her hair. I never married, Mama. I never had a child. I do not know if I will. I do not mind. I think I do not mind. I have a great many children. They come into the clinic and they hold my hand and they go home, and the next ones come in, and that is maybe enough for me. She opened her eyes. She put the coin in the bronze vase, tucked beneath the flowers. I am leaving this here with you. I do not need it anymore. I never did need it, did I? It was always just a way to keep finding you. Mama, I have found you now. She stood up. She brushed the wet earth from her knees. She walked back to the car. She did not look back. The wind moved through the cypress trees. The dollar shone, tarnished and small, in the gray morning light, half hidden by a bunch of November chrysanthemums. That someone, a long time ago, or just yesterday, had brought for Elizabeth. 3 more springs came to the orchard. The apple trees bloomed 3 more times and dropped their pink petals onto the wet grass. 3 more summers turned the leaves heavy and green. 3 more autumns burned them gold. And Bridget Donnelly walked among them in her cream cardigan, with her reading glasses on a chain, slower each year, but always walking, until one Sunday morning in May. Bridget Donnelly lived at Stillwater Manor until her death at 82. She did not die in a hospital. She died in the room that had been Elizabeth Bellwether's room half a century before, in an iron bed with a view of the apple orchard. Cordelia held her hand. The old woman opened her eyes one last time, and she said very clearly, "Tell your mother." "I kept the candle lit," Cordelia said. "I will. Bridget, I will." The old woman closed her eyes, and she let go. The clinic in Queens has a small plaque beside the front door. It is bronze. It is simple. It is set into the stone. There are no names on it. There is only one line. "True wealth is what you give back." People come and go. They press buttons. The doors slide open. The doors slide closed. Sometimes a woman will stop on her way out with a baby in her arms, or a diagnosis in her pocket, or simply her week behind her eyes. She will touch the plaque. She will not know why. She will just touch it, and then she will go home to her own kitchen, where the lavender of her own life hangs from its own beams, and somewhere in the Berkshires, in a small farmhouse made of fieldstone, with a porch wreath of dried lavender, and a sleeping white dog, and a quilt on a bed, and a wooden box of unread Sundays, a woman named Cordelia Bellwether will be already home.